Hello, my name is Rick Goldberg. Biology these days is in the news. Lots of stories about genes and culture affecting our lives. Can aspects of Judaism be evaluated biologically? I'll introduce my book with 10 provocative questions. Do human beings have a basic nature, and if so, where did it come from? Do our basic urges originate in our mind or in our body? Why did prominent men in the Bible have multiple wives and concubines? In the Bible, were family relationships typically loving or conflicted? Are there biological explanations for tension in families? Does circumcision make it easier for women than men to convert to Judaism? And, if so, why did it historically matter? Observant Jewish couples refrain from sexual relations for 40% of their married lives. Could this regulation have resulted in greater marital harmony? Does Darwinian selection work only through genes, or can it also work through cultural products, like traditions? What does a peacock displaying its colorful tail have in common with a man who offers his sweetheart a bouquet of flowers? Why has religious sacrificing been found in virtually all societies? Judaism in Biological Perspective is an edited volume with 9 full chapters written by scholars of Judaism, anthropology, and psychology. I'd like to offer a glimpse of each chapter to give an idea of what's in the book. To begin, let's assume human beings are evolved organisms, thereby amenable to biological analysis. Chapter 1 asks a basic question. Can we infer from the Jewish religious text assumptions about human nature? As we learn from Genesis, man is formed from the earth of the ground. The word formed is from the Hebrew root yud sadik resh. Later in Genesis, that same Hebrew root characterizes man as having evil thoughts every day and an evil propensity from youth. Biblical Hebrew thus suggests our primal essence is the source of our selfishness based on our God-given nature. Chapter 2 deals with mind and body differentiation. Ancient Greece conceived knowledge as originating from 2 sources, from the mind and from the senses. As heirs to this classical understanding, Western thinkers tend to think dualistically, that mind and body operate at least somewhat independently. Judaism, however, assumes a unified mind and body. So what lesson can Jewish rejection of mind-body dualism teach us? Social sciences like psychology are restricted to humans, while biology, a natural science, is restricted to animals. But the Bible assumes we humans are natural creatures with a primal nature. Isn't it enough for humans to be remarkably exceptional? Why must we be considered totally exceptional from other forms of life? Though we are different from elephants and very different from grasshoppers, could social science learn something about humans by comparing our nature with that of other creatures? Chapter 3 deals with human polygyny, focusing on prominent men in the Bible who begat many children through sexual unions with multiple women. Chapter 4 focuses on the conflicts between biblical family members. These poignant stories of family discord are memorable because we expect the opposite, especially among close relatives in the Bible. This book chapter explains how intra-family rivalries that cause betrayal, violence, and even murder among family members are consistent with biological understandings of human nature. The following rabbinic axiom makes perfect evolutionary sense. A man is most closely related to himself. Chapter 5 discusses how the laws of circumcision historically affected the Jews. Jewish law has permitted but actively discouraged conversion, a position that persists to this day. For men wishing to convert, circumcision is a necessary requirement, but women who wanted to marry Jewish men and raise Jewish children never had to face circumcision. Thus, female converts outnumbered male converts in the ancient world. The Bible has many examples of Jewish men consorting with non-Jewish women, but few examples of the opposite. This chapter, written by a noted anthropologist who is also a doctor, suggests that Jewish men were attractive as husbands because, in part, they were less prone to sexually transmitted disease. Why? Because circumcision helped prevent infections that caused female infertility. Also discussed in this chapter is the historic selection for intelligence in Jewish populations. Rabbinic academies drew students with the highest demonstrable analytic and verbal aptitude. Wealthy families selected the brightest scholars as marriage partners for their daughters. In times of high infant mortality, children of privileged matches were raised in homes where good food and medical care were more available, thus bolstering survival. The next chapter is about marital sexuality. According to Jewish law, with the first evidence of menstrual flow, a wife becomes sexually unavailable to her husband. This period of abstinence continues until the wife observes 7 days free of blood. Only then can she immerse herself in a ritual pool and resume relations with her husband. Not coincidentally, her sexual availability coincides with the time she is most likely to ovulate and conceive. Thus, these laws regulating sex and abstinence can be seen biologically as a reproductive strategy that promotes the mandate, be fruitful and multiply. Added benefits include increased paternity certainty and investment in children, reduced jealousy and manipulation of the husband's testosterone to fit the wife's cycle of fertility. The most powerful influences on all organisms come from their ancestors. For human beings, what is inherited includes both genes and cultural practices. When descendants copy the culture of those that came before them, we call the behaviors traditions, the focus of our next chapter. Inheriting and following traditions is as much a part of human nature as the adaptation of walking on 2 legs. Any trait that is replicable and valuable, including traditions, will tend to increase its frequency in future generations. The last section of the book is based on a theory of communication called costly signaling. When organisms need to communicate with one another, the signals must be recognizably costly to be considered reliable. For the male peacock, growing that colorful tail is an expensive proposition. Heavy resource investment is required to produce tails with the brightest colors and the best symmetry. Like most animals, the peahen in estrus chooses a male for mating. Many males display, but few are chosen. In Chapter 8, costly signaling provides a novel interpretation of religious sacrificing. The term sacrifice usually refers to the animal or other valuable that is offered. However, from an evolutionary perspective, when a valuable is sacrificed ceremonially, it's not the valuable itself that constitutes the sacrifice. Rather, the owner's donation of something valuable constitutes the sacrifice. The donor sends a costly, reliable signal that displays cooperation. How could giving things away be beneficial? Generosity raises prestige, and studies have found that prestigious people leave more descendants because they have more resources at their disposal. Behaving altruistically, according to one's religion, increases communal standing. The high status gained from ritual giving explains why religious sacrificing is so common in human populations. Before the electronic entertainment of our time, public sacrificing was indeed the greatest show on earth. The final chapter asks the question, why are synagogue services so long? Why are religious communities so demanding of their members? The biological explanation can be found in costly signaling theory. Religions purposefully have standards that are time-consuming and expensive so members can evaluate one another's commitment. Would congregants be able to do that if ritual gatherings lasted 15 minutes instead of 2 hours or longer? In conclusion, Judaism in biological perspective applies scientific method to the study of traditional religion. My presumption is that religion could not have emerged and survived all over the world were it not congruent with the evolved nature of human beings. I hope my book is of interest to you, and thanks for listening.